to our web exclusive. I'm Mike Montecalvo, along with Eyewitness News analyst Lieutenant General Reginald Centracchio. I don't think you can argue, General, this has probably been one of the best summers we've seen in a long time. Obviously, we've needed rain along the way. But now Tony is talking about her mean that's coming up through Florida. Not sure what it's going to do yet. But the seas could be rough this weekend, and the state of Rhode Island needs to be prepared. You talked to the EMA director today.
I did talk to Pete Gaynor a little while ago, and the plan is really one that takes a look at possibilities, probabilities, and so on. And right now they are looking at that plan to make sure that each state agency knows exactly what their responsibilities are, as well as the towns and cities and what that interface will be to identify resource requirements, manning, and so on and so forth. And it's built to be really in front of the storm and certainly not reactive.
Communication is going to be key in all this.
It is. In fact, surprised you mentioned that because he did too, about the interoperability that we have now that we didn't several years ago. We have a tremendous ability to speak to the towns and cities, interagency, as well as outside the state and so on. So I think the communications is well in hand, providing people understand that they need to get on those systems and be able to have the communications. What we don't want to see is a telephone there or a system in place and no one there to be on it.
All right, you mentioned it. Let's talk about this for a second. You were EMA director when you were Adjutant General for about 10 years. Talk about the changes when you were there to now when Pete Gaynor is running the EMA.
I think the biggest slice of the preparedness aspects is the ability to determine exactly how far out you can determine whether a storm is a tropical storm, a hurricane, whether in fact it has a significant impact on the state and where it's going to hit on the state. And I think the methodology, the computers, the models that we've had over the last several years are light years ahead of what we had 10 or 15 years ago. I think really 10 to 15 years ago, you look out the window and say, there's a hurricane down the road, maybe a day out, that maybe would hit. No way could we determine that it was 5, 4, maybe more than that, the ability to say it was going to hit Rhode Island.
All right, so even if it's not a direct hit, let's say you just have rip currents, a lot of wind, heavy rain, you're still treating this the same way as if it would be a possible hit?
Absolutely, and I think the biggest enemy to readiness is apathy and complacency. Those two items will cost us dearly, and I think we've seen Tony Petracca talk about this so many times. The rip current and all the other associated things are as dangerous as a direct hit because people will lose their lives if they don't pay attention to it and use a common sense approach.
All right, let's talk about some of the things that they're trying to. I know National Grid's been brought in on this over the last several years. I had mentioned to you about old power lines before we came on the air. You said actually poles need to be replaced.
Yeah, and I think if you just pay attention to as you negotiate the state, I see a healthy program of replacing poles. To look at the entire infrastructure of the power grid in Rhode Island, I don't think you can put in the same category as our bridge situation that we're facing with that is really in bad shape. So as we talk, every time there's a new development, there's an attempt to put that power line underneath as well as to replace poles on a continuing basis.
And of course we're going to keep tracking these storms as the days and the weekend comes around. Let's switch gears for a second. I know you went to a funeral this morning. Captain Elwood Joseph Ewert was laid to rest. Finally, his remains were brought back to Rhode Island after 2 years. A true hero. Saved himself in World War II, found out 6 people were still on a boat, went back on a boat, saved them, then he died when the ship sank. You were at the funeral. Even though it's been over 70 years, General, and a lot of people who were there probably didn't know him, it's still emotional.
You're right. I think Rhode Island has a reputation of really caring about its veterans, and especially those that went to World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, and so on. There's a special feeling, and that was very evident this morning at the church and last night at the wake. So I think even though it was 74 years ago, people still feel very close to that, and they didn't even know the family. And that's very much appreciated, not by the family, not only by the family, but existing mothers and fathers who have sons and daughters in harm's way right now.
And veterans look at that when they see the support, right? It's got to be helpful.
Yeah, and last night and as well as today at the church, a tremendous amount of veterans groups were there.
All right, General, as always, thank you for your thoughts and thanks for watching.